That's not going to happen in my administration. They're going to be a part of it. We're going to institute technology. And can I? Okay, sorry.
Thanks, Ms. Gore. Mayor Jackson?
Yes, and the court made a ruling on school funding, but it didn't provide a remedy. And there are others, people who are talking about using income tax to support rather than property tax. Those communities have done that, have found themselves in deep financial problems. So right now we are stuck with the property tax formulation. And you're right about, Ms. Brown, about corporate contribution. One of the things I think our CEO, Dr. Sanders, is being able to do is get a lot of funding from the private sector, particularly in the option schools. In terms of the brain drain, I think that's what you're referring to. Young people need a career path. And you're going to have a career path if you have an economy and prosperity. That is why I plan for Cleveland for the future, doing things for now, and then also positioning Cleveland for the future. And when you make decisions, sometimes people like it, sometimes they don't, but you have to make them.
Okay, Mr. Kylo.
About 10 seconds or more this time? No,
We'll give you the full minute.
Good, because it's an important question, or a couple of questions. First of all, in terms of the property tax situation and the unconstitutionality of what's going on, I think it's time to send a message to Clevelanders that we want to start raising our property values. And I realize that there needs to be some things sorted out due to that, but ultimately if we can start getting people moving back into the city and renovating our homes, that can hike up the property taxes that their city would be receiving, and that's a great thing. On the education side, part of my background is I serve on the board of a great school called ePrep, which is short for the Entrepreneurship Preparatory School. It's an outstanding school that's really knocking the ball out of the park in terms of what it's doing for our kids. But one of the things I've noticed in my leadership position and development is that this is an incredibly generous community. And I think if you go back to the roots of Cleveland in terms of philanthropy, there's some of the best foundations that you'll ever see here in Cleveland. I think if we kind of set that BHAG, that big, hairy, audacious goal, as Jim Collins would say, high enough, let's get all the foundations working together to raise extra dollars to come around the cause of our kids, because I can think of no better cause than the future leaders of our city. So, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Patmon.
Yes, I'm familiar with the decision. And what we have now is a state legislature and a governor who are now trying to get inside the law. The ruling was against our government, and the governor has gone forward with some adjustment of the law as it relates to school funding. He needs to do a lot more, and as a mayor, I would push him hard to finally and once and for all get our state government inside the rulings of its own state court system. Secondly, what would I do for young folks? I'd actually open my cabinet up, open my mayor's office up, and meet with them, because the best thing we can do for young people in Cleveland is to listen to them. I'm old enough that sometimes I forget. So I need to have that input from young folks, and I would open the mayor's office up and make darn sure that they had that opportunity. Thank you.
Before we go on to the next question, I'd really like to give each of you the chance, 30 seconds if you'd like. Everything you've all said, I think, are hard for anyone to disagree with. But maybe this question will help differentiate the candidates a bit. Specifically, what do you bring to the table that can make these things happen as mayor? Yes, please.
Well, because of my 22 years of being a clinical social worker as well as a gospel radio announcer, I've done a whole lot in this community. I've always been a strong voice for young people. It's easy for me to engage them because this is my expertise. I think that what I bring more so than any other candidate is the ability to be creative, the ability to work with both nonprofit and corporate organizations, the ability to raise the necessary dollars if it deems necessary in order to move people forward. But more so to get people excited. This is the reason why we're pushing our world-class marketing and promotions team, so therefore they will buy into the concept of bringing businesses and corporations and actually showing businesses and corporations exactly the talents that we have right here in the city of Cleveland, which in fact I think is great.
Thanks, Ms. Brown. And Ms. Gore, specifically what you bring to the table.
I think I have my master's in education. I have my MPH in public health. I can say to you, the reality of the situation is we have opportunities here. I am a national recruiter for the United States Military Academy. I have lived the entire world. I bring a global perspective that not any of the candidates can look to except to think about. I know that when I talk to the citizens of Romania right here in Cleveland, when I talk to the citizens of Italy when they're here in Cleveland, I've seen their countries, and I know what we can do. The marketing and bringing them here, and I'm going to stop in a second, is the most exciting thing. Cleveland is exciting. We can do it here.
Mr. Jackson.
Is this in terms of education? Is that what
the question had to do with education.
Okay. What I would bring and what I've already brought is the leadership that really puts in place a strategy and a program that has as its end result a higher academic achievement. Because I agree with my opponent, whichever opponent said that really education really is a key to our success. And putting education as a way in which we can not only stabilize population but grow population is the key. So we put in place many things that, as I imagine we go forward, I can talk about not in 30 seconds.
Sure. Mr. Kylo.
Point back to the other question, I think one way we can draw people that are young to the city and make it flourish is be young. I'm young and energetic, and I've got a lot of things I can bring to the table. I want to address this related to education. I believe our Cleveland Metropolitan School District has all the assets in the people if we start raising the expectations. I think we need to cast a vision that the Cleveland Metropolitan School District can graduate its kids at a rate that's as strong or better than any suburban school. If you bring a culture of discipline, safe environment, collaborative spirit, and you really bring a no-excuse policy and spread that across the entire city, my role would be to connect the dots so that we can do it together. It can be done, and it needs to be done now.
Mr. Patmon, specifically what you bring to the table.
Before my time starts, I thought the question was that, what do you bring to the table? Okay.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
All right. Thank you. What I bring to the table, 12 years in Cleveland City Council, working most of my professional life either studying politics, being in politics, working in the neighborhoods, doing the things that have pushed Cleveland to be a great city. I bring that to the table from when I worked before. I bring it back to the table with greater emphasis. A little older, know a lot more, would love to be the next mayor to get this city moving.
Okay, thank you. Time is running short. Let's see if we can get to another question.
My name is Maria Riggins, and I have a question for the whole panel. Like, what do you do to, what do you plan on doing to help the troubled youth in our city?
I know it's a tall order to ask you to sum that up in 30 seconds, but perhaps we could begin with Mr. Patmon.
What do I plan to do
in terms of to help the troubled youth?
Actually, we're doing some things now which I would expand. For instance, in Bill Patmon's Cleveland, every child goes to school, whether you go to regular school or you go to trouble school. Even if you go to the juvenile delinquent hall, we're going to have a school in there in Bill Patmon's Cleveland. So we're going to push on the one side, and we're going to reward on the other side by giving scholarships, by giving incentives to folks, and by hooking up with companies so that you get some internships, some professionalism as you move through school and get out of school. So we have carrot and stick in Bill Patmon's Cleveland.
Mr. Kylo.
The Founding Fathers were very clear that the reason the Republic of the United States would succeed, and it has, is because of personal responsibility and self-government. I want to send a message to every individual that lives in Cleveland or this region that if you believe it strong enough, you can achieve it. And I want Cleveland to be a place where dreams can be, where they can come true. And I'd like to see it happen in our youth. So it starts with attitude. We as individuals have to step up. Then it starts with the family, because mothers and fathers and grandparents have to rally around the cause of our kids. Then it gets to a point where civil government can do something that's effective, which is really work around them as a team. So when it's all said and done, I want our kids in school, I want them learning, and when they're learning and off the streets, there's not the violence that you see now. So it has to do with education. That's the way to get this city flourishing in that aspect of society.
And Mr. Jackson, the question was about helping youth.
Well, I want to thank Mr. Patmon because what he said is I'm already doing. So I appreciate you saving some of my time. What the real crust of it, children have to know that they live in an environment that's safe, that has no other agenda but their well-being.